Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1. And because the weather is pretty questionable and pretty crappy on a Monday outdoors here in the Southeast, we're going to go indoors for our topic this go around. And we are going to catch up with part of the executive board of directors for the National Indoor Soccer League. Some big announcements that have happened in the NISL over the last handful of weeks. And hanging out with us is Andrew Haines, part of the board of directors. Andrew, thanks for hanging out for a 1v1.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
All right, so I know that you've had a history with indoor soccer in a couple of different markets in Central Florida and St. Louis and such. What brought you to the NISL to sit there and say, hey, I want to jump on board with this and start with this, with opening the opening matches around Christmas? But what attracted you to the NISL in the first place?
Well, a lot of things, but I mean, I grew such a great love for the indoor game. You know, I grew up more of a football guy, American football. So, you know, as a kid, I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We had the Hershey Impact and then the Harrisburg Heat. So I remember as a kid, those memories of going to the games, or actually, you know, in Hershey, I got to play at Hershey Park Arena, you know, before a game. And so it was always kind of fun from a fan perspective. And then when I got into the business, you know, St. Louis was very successful. We had great fan turnout, great support. You know, then sold that a few years later, started the Tropics. So I've loved the game. You know, I sold out of the Tropics about mid 2018. And, you know, I've helped out the league a little bit with a couple of the other franchises and still kind of been around it. But I was like, man, I really like to get back into it. There's a few markets that I was targeting before. And then I started talking to some of my friends who have been involved in arena football for, you know, 15, 20 years. And they've always kind of followed, you know, my social media, and they see like, oh, wow, man, you know. And so, you know, they know the business side of it is pretty much the same, you know, whether it, you know, insert whatever sport you want. The business is very similar. You know, and so it all kind of just started talking, you know, just BSing around and, you know, about business, about how to grow their current things. And so it kind of just evolved. You know, I'm one of those guys that can take an idea and then make it into reality. And so there was a few times during this process, I was like, man, I don't think it's going to happen. And things just started falling in place. And, it was real exciting. And the big difference really, I mean, it's mega, is that we have a women's division. So there's no other professional women's. And that all kind of came about as like, well, how can we be different than anything else out there? How can we reach more fans, more corporations? And when you sit back and think about it, it's like, why the hell haven't we done this already? I mean, the women's soccer in the U.S. is the top in the world for women's. So it's just a natural fit. And it gives women now an opportunity to play professional indoor soccer as well. So that was probably the final straw there for me. It's like, man, I think we have something. You know, after you're reaching out to people and getting feedback from major corporations to facilities. And so I think our concept, I really, really love. It's been very well thought out. I know there's some critics out there of it, but I do think that it will increase our ticket sales overall, as well as our partnership revenue.
What has the initial response been in the handful of weeks since the launch, where you've said, okay, we're going to have a men's division, women's division, double headers, and that's a part of our fabric? What has the initial response and feedback been like?
I'll tell you, it's been very, very positive. I mean, we did our first, press conference last week. And outside of that, the only people who have really seen it have been fans of indoor soccer or, fans that have come across it. So it hasn't necessarily been in the markets that we've been in. So hearing from them, some of the pushback, they nobody's going to stay for, 5 or 6 hours. And we agree. We don't expect fans to stay for 2 full games. And with some of our rule modifications, we expect our games to be under 2 hours each, with a 20 to 30 minute intermission in between the 2 games. So our goal is really to be in and out of there from player intros to the final whistle of the second game within 4.5 hours. We think the average fan will stay about a game and a half, so they'll see both games, but maybe not the full extent. And our business model can work with that. So that's really the only negative that I've heard from fans out there. And again, like I said, the good thing is that you don't have to stay for both. You could stay for one if you want. So it's not like we're forcing anything on any of the fans, but we give them that option. I have a son and a daughter. My daughter played high school soccer. This would have been great for her to go check out the women's team. My son would have probably watched both of my kids probably would have watched both, because in high school the girls think these players are hot anyway. So so it's I think for the most part you're going to see a nice crossover, and in the markets, in the facilities, the cities that we're in that even aren't announced, that we're starting to talk, the response has been like nothing I've ever seen before. I think that press conference in Memphis was probably the best press conference I've ever been a part of on many, angles. And so it's exciting. I've been busy since that Thursday press conference, though.
I don't doubt that for a second. So you mentioned rules modifications, and I think that one of the things that attracts folks and the casual fan to soccer is the fact that it's the length of a movie. It is 2 hours. You're in, you're out, you're done. What you're doing, in effect, is you're bringing folks to a drive-in theater and you're showing a double feature.
There you go.
So what are those rules modifications that you guys are looking into to get that game into 2 hours so you can get those fans or that group of fans to sit there and watch a movie and a half or even watch the double feature?
I think one of the big things that we had in the prior league that I was associated with was too many timeouts. Teams have way too many timeouts. It slows the game down. Review, officials review. Listen, they're not going to get it right all the time, but we're not going to slow the game down with challenges. So by eliminating the timeouts, not completely, but drastically reducing them, no officials reviews, right there, those two things. Games, if you look online, are typically, I'd say on average 205 to about 215. And so if we just have to tweak a few small things to get it there. We need to make sure the games start on time. Sometimes, teams go past when the game is actually supposed to start with intros and whatnot. But we think that if we can focus on those, halftime would be shaved about 2 to 3 minutes, unless it's a special event. And, those few things we expect to get there. The other thing we haven't decided, which I'm going to be an advocate of at our first league meetings, will be I want to get rid of the flopping. It's another thing that just slows the game down. And, I want to make it where if the trainer has to come out on the field, that you have to sit out for 2 minutes. It's almost like a 2-minute yellow card, because I see it in every single game. And these players, they take it, they flop because they want that, they want to put somebody in the penalty box. And it just, again, it slows it down. So we're definitely going to evaluate that. I'm going to propose something along those lines at the meetings.
Or video review, maybe, where you sit there and you if there's a suspected incident of that, does that go to video review? Yeah,
I don't think I think we try to stay away from video review if we can because of the time. But, it's one of those things. I think, and we've been talking about it internally amongst the groups that are in, is we have to have some level of flexibility right now, because we're trying some things that haven't been done before. So we need to be able to say, hey guys, what, this isn't working 2-3 weeks in. We really need to modify it now. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just, kind of getting the feedback from fans and, seeing the flow of the games.
You mentioned Memphis and that press conference last week where the Memphis Americans, going back into those of us who are of a certain vintage, remember the Memphis Americans, and we remember the names and that kind of stuff. Memphis as a market, you're going to be playing out in the suburbs, not the first team in the Memphis area to do that. The River Kings played ice hockey in Mississippi as well. So taking advantage of the landscape and arenas that are available to you. When it comes to arena size, I know that you're looking to make sure that the buildings are packed. When you're looking for venues, I'll get into markets here in a second, but when you're looking for venues, what size venue are you looking to max out here?
Well, I think any venue probably in that 5,000 to 10,000 seat range is optimal. Memphis is, I think, 8,500 roughly. So really that 7,000 to 8,500 is kind of that, in my eyes, that's the ideal amount. But I think anything between 5 to 10 can work.
And when you mentioned, Memphis, hotbed, for everybody who remembers the old MISL days, things like that, you remember those kinds of things. And, as we're talking, if you want to break news about future markets that are going to be joining Memphis, feel free during this conversation.
Right.
But when it comes to markets specifically, what kind of a market are you looking for to add to franchises to make sure that the league goes off the way that it should?
I think it's kind of a moving type target. I mean, obviously we need markets that have enough businesses to support on the corporate side. And then there needs to be enough, fan base to be able to pull a few thousand fans a game. So, I want to say, Memphis to me reminds me a lot of St. Louis, which is where I was. Some of the other markets that we're going into maybe are a little bit smaller. And so there's pros and cons, in a smaller market, you're the big fish, maybe less people to draw from. But I think, we kind of look at the overall, picture. We take the facility, we look at the size and the amenities that it has. We look at, how many youth soccer, clubs and kids are there in the region. And I do that because that's the base. That's the easy base for ticket sales. And then you grow from outside that. But, you look at the soccer base. For this league specifically, we're focused on trying to attract regional players. So as opposed to going out and signing players from all over the world, we are like in Memphis, really a 3-hour radius is our goal. And once we figure out where we're at there, then we'll decide how many people we have to bring in from the outside. But there's a great deal of talent throughout this country, that aren't playing right now, that haven't been, discovered for this. And so for us in Memphis specifically, from a business standpoint, it doesn't benefit me anymore to bring in a veteran player from the other league. It just doesn't. It does maybe on the field, but business wise, nobody in Memphis knows who the top player is in the other league. So from that standpoint, but if I sign a All-American from University of Memphis, they're going to know that person. So, Ole Miss is not that far from there either. I mean, there's some great programs in that region.
When it comes to the vetting process for owners, because I know that as a league that is starting up, you don't want, and we've seen it in leagues across the board where you'll bring in an ownership group, it's a one and done, and it doesn't do the league any good, it doesn't do the sport any good, it doesn't do the fabric of the community any good. What's the vetting process like for the board to make sure that you have the right owners to be a part of this venture?
It starts with rubber gloves. And no, it's something that collectively our group is like, look, we don't care if we only have 4 teams. To us, there's nothing wrong with that. We're committed to four cities. And, some people are like, oh, you have to have 8 to be a real league or 6. And I disagree. I think the quality is more important to us than the numbers. And initially, we were going to make it pretty inexpensive to join the league. And then we just said, you know what? No, we need to go the opposite. We're quite a bit more than the other league. Our league is not going to be for everyone. It's going to be probably the most difficult league to get into from, indoor soccer standpoint. And our group is fine with it just being the 4 cities for this season. So I think when we have that mindset, it doesn't put us in a position where we have to take a lesser quality ownership group or a lesser quality market. It lets us kind of be in control. When we do these league deals with Nike and some of these others, I mean, they want to know too that this is the top of the top. And they don't want teams coming and going, and they don't want, people playing in rec facilities. So all those things play into our big picture with, everyone talks about TV and media, and, nobody's ever going to put you on TV if, it doesn't look good. And that's proper facilities, that's proper turf, it's proper uniforms. I mean, it's everything. Fan base that's actually in the buildings. So that's our big focus. But, application process, I mean, if someone doesn't have enough liquid cash when they fill out the online form, we just tell them right away, hey, look, you didn't qualify. We do have minority ownership, opportunities with a few of the teams that people can join. But to be a majority owner, you've got to have the wherewithal and not just the money. You have to either, have the proper staffing in place or know the business. And then you have to buy into our vision. And if you don't buy into our vision, that's probably number one. If you're not bought in on that, it doesn't matter the rest. And it's, we're a women's and a men's league, and, we strive to be the highest level possible, the most collaboration amongst teams, where we're all business partners trying to help each other every step of the way. And then when we play, we talk trash and we have fun.
Andrew Haines, the National Indoor Soccer League, hanging out with us for another couple of minutes here for a Soccer Down Here 1v1. And this is one of the questions that I always like to ask in these situations. When you're building something, and realistically, I mean, you're just under 8 months to go before your first matches, everybody has that to-do list. And it could be on your phone in a document that you sit there and you take out the little light pen, you sit there and you're writing notes constantly and it stays in your phone. Could be a magnet board on your fridge in the kitchen. Could be a big dry erase board, or you have several in your office and you have a bunch of lists. Where is your to-do list? And what's the next thing that you think you can scratch off of it as you get toward your season here, toward the end of the calendar in 2021?
I've got a lot, and I'm pretty busy with owning multiple businesses, and but I'm kind of helping the league from the bigger picture stuff. And so right now, my focus is to start crossing off lists in Memphis. So I've got my Memphis list. I've got a dry erase board right next to me. That's my big picture. And then I have Google Sheets of every entity that I'm working on. Because, I do consulting for minor league baseball, have an insurance agency. So a little busy. But, in Memphis, since I'm, part of the ownership group there, and kind of the leader on our ownership, I'm not the majority, but I am the guy who's getting the work done. It's let's get our GM hired. Let's get our head coach hired. So those interviews have been underway, and our ownership group has ownership in another city that we're going to be announcing soon. So it'll be the same thing in that market. Meanwhile, we're helping, the league. So we're constantly looking. If you look at our league website and you see our partnerships that we've done, it's all about how can we help our teams be successful. So let's have a turnkey package when somebody wants to come in and operate a team, so that they don't have to figure it all out. So we do partnerships with like Spinzo, which is a group ticket platform. You'll hear us talk about it. Probably nobody knows what it is, but people in the business do. And it's a tool that will help our teams be more successful. And it helps, especially when you're running on a smaller budget. So most of our teams are only going to have a handful of full-time people. So you have to have these tools that can help you, Live Source, Soccer Master with our online stuff, Nike, everybody goes, hey, here's the Nike deal. This is what you get as part of the deal. Here's what how you order stuff. So that's a big part of it. And once we have that system in place, it's really not as much work as it is just to launch one team. So
when it comes to what we've all gone through in the last 14 months, did you and the rest of the board sit there and I guess have second, third, fourth, fifth thoughts about when to launch, how to launch franchises, or did it make you more resilient to launch when you had with the timetables that you had set in place?
I think it was a little scary because, this has been in the hardcore works for at least 6 months. So we're talking, end of last year. And so we're like, well, we don't know. It sounds like things are going to, be okay soon. So that was a little scary, but we also felt like when it does come back, we feel like people are really going to appreciate live events a little bit more. And they're going to be ready to get out there. And so with us being at the end of the year, we felt like, okay, the summer we'll probably get some live events going again and have some fans out there. So this gives us, by the time we play in every state we're in, everyone is expecting 100% capacity at that point. So again, if we're in 7,000 seats and we have to, be at 50 or 75% capacity, I don't think that's the end of the world for us. But I think based on everything that we're hearing now, we'll be fine. I mean, I know in Memphis area that they just had a sellout for Mike Epps, comedian. So they're starting to get back, and then the other states are right around there as well.
All right. So for those that want to keep an eye on what's going on with the National Indoor Soccer League on all the media that is social, how do they do it?
We are at nislpro.com is the website, and that's the same for the social media, just at NISL Pro. And that's a great way to keep up. We've got a newsletter you can sign up for on the website, but as you see all the teams popping up, I mean, all the sites are going to be set up very, very similar. So when you go to one, you'll be able to navigate the others pretty easily as well.
And it is about looking for and getting the right four on the board for you here as you launch late in 2021 with everything coming through with Memphis last week, officially launching about 3 weeks ago. Andrew, thanks for being a part of the soccer landscape. Thanks for hanging out with us for a Soccer Down Here 1v1. We'll be keeping an eye on stuff, and we will definitely be checking back in as you get closer to launch at the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.